I work as a security guard for a company that takes jobs no one else will. Part 7. Recently, I was transferred to the operator's room in HQ. Essentially, I'd sit in a room with a lady who served as backup for various guards who found themselves in situations they couldn't resolve. Most of the situations were your run-of-the-mill cases, where guards had drunks trespassing, or being unsure if they should investigate certain sounds, etc. There was only one call that I witnessed which stood out for me. It was a late night and we got a call from a guard who was stationed at a private farm. Whenever a call came through, I'd put on the extra pair of headsets which would allow me to hear the conversation. Here's the transcript of the conversation. Operator:
This is HQ. What's your situation?
Guard: Yeah, this is Mark from Spencer Farm. There's a guy standing in front of the barn. I can see him on the camera.
Alright.
He's been standing here for 2 hours now. At first I thought the camera was frozen, but when I zoomed in just now, I could see his fingers are moving. He's tapping them nervously on his thigh. And wait, his head seems to be twitching slightly.
Is he armed?
I can't see from here. He's facing away from the camera, but I don't see anything in his hands.
He's standing on private property. You need to warn him to leave right away.
Yeah, I'll do that right away.
Stay on the call while you do so and tell me if you need backup.
5 minutes later, we heard the guard's voice over the call again. Sir, can you hear me? There was a moment of silence.
What's going on over there?
He isn't responding. He's just standing and twitching there. His twitching is getting more and more violent. I think something's wrong with him.
Get him off the property.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to... There was a loud scream coming from the guard. The operator pressed him to respond with what was wrong, but the guard kept screaming and panting on the line, followed by the sound of frantic footsteps. There was a sound of a door violently shutting and shuffling, before the guard quieted down and tried to calm his breathing as much as he could.
Mark, I need you to talk to me. What's going on?
The guard's voice came through in a whisper.
Can't talk. He's right outside.
By this point, I had already called the intervention unit, who said they would arrive on the scene in 10 minutes.
Mark, can you get somewhere safe? Backup will be there in 10 minutes, but I need you to hide. Can you do that?
I'm inside the locker. He's standing just outside the security room. There's something wrong with his face.
What do you mean?
It's all wrong. It's like, it's sideways. His head is normal and all, but the eyes, nose, and mouth are all flipped sideways. I think he's calling my name. Oh God, he's coming inside. There was a sound of a door slowly opening, and then a set of slow and deliberate footsteps. Mark's breathing became stifled as he tried to steady it, probably clasping a hand over his mouth. And then a voice came through, a raspy voice, which sounded as if the person on the other end had something stuck in their throat.
Mark,
it said. Mark's breathing suddenly became more violent, and then he started screaming and begging for his life. The call ended, and the operator and I stared at each other in disbelief. The intervention team arrived on the scene soon. There was no trace of Mark or the man that attacked him. The camera feed showed Mark approaching the man, who then turned around to face the guard, and then Mark running back to the security room. From there, the man followed Mark to the security room, taking slow, unsteady steps, twitching along the way. He opened the locker where Mark had hid himself. Then the camera feed cut out. On the frames where the man was facing the camera, I could see his face clearly. It was exactly as Mark had described it, as if the man's face was rotated to the left by 90 degrees. A pair of eyes staring blankly sideways on top of one another, and a mouth which looked like a smile, but was instead just a crooked slit. Mark was never found again. My next story is going to be from another intervention unit member. He was stationed at some experimental facility and didn't want to share any details about its location or nature of the experiment, because as he said, more than his job would be at stake. He spent about 5 months there with his unit and never saw any action. The regular security guards like me were taking care of the mundane problems like trespassers, etc. However, his unit regularly had drills in case of any emergency scenarios. He said the drills were not the typical military kind, but that there were some rules they needed to know which pertained to not getting into any kind of physical contact with civilians. Their main objective in the worst case scenario was to seal off all exit points. Sure enough, one day an alarm sounds in the facility, and he and his team get ready to start their mission. As they made their way through the facility, they ran into various dead scientists and other staff members. And then they ran into a survivor, a researcher, all bloody and scared. He raised his hands and begged them not to shoot, while the unit just kept barking orders at him to keep his distance. The researcher kept saying that he's not infected, whatever that meant. And as he stood there, eyeing everyone, all of a sudden he snarled, showing rows of sharp teeth which were not there a second ago. And then he lunged forward, tackling one unit member and sinking his teeth into his face. The guy told me they started shooting long before he even lunged, but it was as if the researcher didn't even react to the bullets. He was riddled with holes and bled, but just kept biting and biting, until finally he just fell over. He tried to jump again, but died a second later. The unit members emptied their clips into the now dead scientist and proceeded to leave the facility, leaving their one dead team member behind. Once they secured the facility and locked every exit point, locking the potential survivors inside, they contacted HQ and a bunch of armored vehicles with military personnel and hazmat suits showed up. The unit was dismissed from the facility and warned not to talk about any sensitive details related to the experiment, names of staff members, etc. No matter how much I pressed him, he refused to tell me more. The final story in this post, which I'm going to share, is from a guard named Tom, who worked in an office building. Before he got sent to work, HQ gave him a 1-week training. He was strictly forbidden from talking or making any kind of vocal sounds while working in the office. Communication with his partner by talking was also forbidden too, so they used hand signals. Upon arriving on his first day, Tom saw people doing their everyday jobs at their desk, typing away, but never ever talking. They wouldn't even look at him, but would just instead stare at their screens all day. Tom followed HQ's instructions and conducted his duties, not talking to anyone. But one day, he brought his cell to work because he was bored. As he made his way through the office, someone started calling him, and the song, which was set as his caller tone, blared in the office. He quickly turned it off, but then realized something terrible. All eyes in the office were fixed on him. The people had stopped typing and working and just stared at Tom with an expressionless face. Tom mumbled, "Shit," to himself, and everyone in the office unanimously said, "Shit," in a synchronized tone. Tom slowly made his way out, and as he went through the hall, he saw through the glass the people were still staring at him. Not only them though, but everyone else in the office stared at Tom as well. He locked himself in the security room along with the partner, and eventually the people returned to their normal taskless work. The next day, Tom was fired for bringing his phone to work and potentially putting himself and his partner in danger. He said it's a good thing too, because he was planning on quitting. This is Kinetic Symphony. If you've enjoyed this narrated story, please subscribe and like the video to help me grow. Thank you.